Prince Harry has spent years fighting the British press to protect his family's privacy. But during a recent high-stakes court battle, a single document was presented that stopped the proceedings entirely. While the world focused on tabloid hacking, a private DNA test result for young Archie was entered into evidence. The courtroom fell silent as Harry looked at the paper and suddenly collapsed. He always claimed he knew the truth, but this hidden revelation suggests a reality no one expected. The air inside the London High Court was heavy, thick with the scent of old wood and the nervous energy of the world's media. Prince Harry sat at the witness stand, a position no senior royal had occupied in over a century. He wasn't there for a royal engagement or a charity gala. He was there for a war. This was his crusade against the British tabloids, a battle he had been preparing for his entire life. For years, he had accused these publications of destroying his mental health and invading his most private moments. He spoke with a quiet intensity, his voice steady but his eyes weary from the constant scrutiny. The lawyers for the defense were relentless, digging into old articles and phone records, trying to paint a picture of a man who was paranoid and obsessed. But Harry held his ground. He believed he was fighting for the truth, for his wife, and most importantly, for his children. As the afternoon session began, the energy in the room shifted. A lawyer for the defense stood up, holding a sealed manila envelope. This wasn't a phone record or a testimony from a disgruntled former staffer. This was something different. The lawyer stated that the court needed to verify certain claims regarding the Duke's motivation for seeking damages. He reached into the envelope and pulled out a series of documents labeled as genetic verification reports. These were private DNA test results concerning Prince Harry's eldest son, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. The introduction of these papers was a shock to everyone, including Harry's own legal team. They had prepared for attacks on his character, but not a direct assault on the biological identity of his child. The courtroom, usually a place of strict decorum and hushed whispers, went completely silent. You could hear the ticking of the wall clock and the distant sound of London traffic outside. The document was handed to Harry. He took it with a trembling hand, his knuckles white against the paper. He began to read. Those watching closely noticed the color drain from his face. It wasn't a slow change, it was as if a curtain had been pulled across his spirit. His breathing became shallow. His lawyers started to stand up, sensing something was terribly wrong, preparing to launch a frantic objection. But they were too late. Before a single word could be uttered to stop the proceedings, Harry's eyes rolled back. His body went limp, and he slumped forward, sliding from the chair toward the floor of the witness box. The sound of his collapse echoed in the silent room. Court officers rushed forward, and the judge immediately ordered the gallery to be cleared. The live feed to the press room was cut to black. The world was left wondering what could possibly be on those pages to cause a seasoned soldier and a prince to lose consciousness. Was it a lie being exposed, or a truth so heavy it broke him? But as the court doors were locked, a single leaked phrase from the transcript began to circulate. To understand why a DNA test could have such a devastating impact, we have to look back at the history of the man sitting in that witness chair. Prince Harry did not grow up like other children. From the moment he was born, his hair color and his features were analyzed by millions of strangers. For decades, cruel rumors circulated that his father wasn't actually King Charles, but rather a man named James Hewitt. Despite the timelines not matching up and Harry sharing unmistakable features with his mother's side, the Spencers, the media refused to let the story go. It was a narrative designed to make him feel like an outsider in his own family. This trauma didn't just disappear when he grew up, it hardened into a deep-seated need to protect his own children from the same fate. When Archie was born, Harry was determined that his son would never have to wonder who he was or where he belonged. The scrutiny on Archie started almost immediately after his birth in 2019. Because the Sussexes chose not to follow the traditional royal birth protocol, refusing to pose on the hospital steps and keeping the christening private, the tabloids became obsessed with proving something was hidden. They questioned the birth, the surrogate rumors, and eventually, the lineage. It was a cycle of doubt that Harry found exhausting and deeply offensive. Have you ever felt like people were judging your family based on lies instead of the truth? It's a frustrating position to be in, and we want to know your thoughts. Do you think the media has a right to demand biological proof from the royal family, or should their privacy be absolute? Let us know in the comments below. The DNA test presented in court wasn't just a random piece of medical data. It was tied to the very laws that govern the British throne. Under the of the body rule, only biological children of the royal couple can stay in the line of succession. If there is even a sliver of doubt, the legal status of the child changes. Harry had always claimed he had nothing to hide, yet the media continued to push. This trial was supposed to be his chance to finally silence the people who had spent decades questioning his bloodline. He wanted to prove that the press used these doubts to harass his family. But by bringing the DNA results into the courtroom, the defense turned his greatest shield into a weapon. They weren't just attacking Harry anymore, they were attacking the identity of a young boy who wasn't even there to defend himself. If the results were truly as shocking as the reaction suggested, the implications would go far beyond a simple court case. It could mean that the titles, the security, and the future Harry had fought so hard to build were based on a foundation that was now crumbling. The defense claimed the test was taken in private, but the source of the sample was even more mysterious. While the public sees the royal family through the lens of glamour and tradition, the reality is much more clinical. Behind the palace walls, there are ancient and modern protocols designed to protect the integrity of the crown. These aren't just suggestions, they are requirements. When a royal child is born, there is an entire machine that swings into action to document every detail. For centuries, this meant having a government official present in the room during birth. While that practice has faded, the need for medical certainty has not. When Harry and Meghan decided to step back from their royal duties and move to California, they thought they were leaving these cold, clinical rules behind. They wanted a life where their children were seen as individuals, not just links in a biological chain. But the institution of the monarchy is not something you can simply walk away from. The legalities of the British Crown have a very long reach, and they followed the Sussexes across the Atlantic. Speculation began to grow that a senior member of the royal household, perhaps someone concerned with the long-term stability of the line of succession, had quietly requested a formal verification shortly after the move to Montecito. This kind of request is often framed as routine paperwork, but to a father like Harry, it feels like an accusation. It is a lonely and isolating experience to live under a microscope where your child's very existence is treated like state property. You are never just a parent, you are a guardian of a bloodline. This constant pressure is something very few people can truly understand. If you're finding this look into the hidden side of royal life interesting, please take a moment to subscribe. We dive deep into the stories that the headlines miss, and we'd love to have you with us as this story continues to unfold. The shocking nature of the results presented in the court might not have been what the gossip columnists expected. It wasn't necessarily a lack of a biological relationship. In the world of high-level genetics, shocking can mean many things. It could be a specific marker that links back to a controversial figure in history, or a result that contradicts previously held medical beliefs. In Harry's case, the defense was using this information to prove that the prince had been untruthful about his reasons for seeking privacy. They were trying to show that he wasn't protecting his family from the press, but rather protecting a secret that the press had every right to investigate. This logical trap was designed to break Harry's resolve. The psychological weight of having your child's DNA discussed as a legal exhibit is a burden that would crush almost anyone. It turned a courtroom into a laboratory where a young boy's future was being dissected under a cold fluorescent light. Everything pointed back to a medical file from 2019 that had been missing for years. When Harry finally slumped in that chair, it was the sound of a man who had reached his absolute limit. It wasn't just about one document, it was about the cumulative weight of every headline, every paparazzi chase, and every whispered rumor he had endured for 40 years. Doctors often talk about the body keeping the score, and in that moment, Harry's body decided the game was over. The physical collapse was a manifestation of a psychological breaking point. Imagine the feeling of trying to hold back a flood with your bare hands, only to realize the water is coming from a leak you didn't even know existed. That was Harry in the London High Court. He has often spoken about how the very air in London feels like a trigger for his trauma. Being back in the heart of the city, facing the very institutions he blames for his mother's death, was already a high-wire act. The DNA evidence was the final push that sent him over the edge. As news of the collapse spread, the world's attention turned to California. Meghan had remained at their home in Montecito, likely to provide stability for Archie and Lilibet while Harry dealt with the legal firestorm. But sources close to the couple say the news reached her almost instantly. The distance between them must have felt like an ocean of static. This is a situation that many families can relate to in their own way, the feeling of being under attack and having to stand strong even when the ground is shaking. We all want to protect our children from the mistakes we've made or the burdens we carry. We want them to have a clean slate. But for Harry, his past was being forced onto his son. The biological data wasn't just a list of markers, it was a connection to a history he had tried to rewrite. The emotional fallout of this moment would ripple through their marriage and their public image for months to come. The real tragedy of the situation was the realization that the sacred bond between a father and son was being used as a tactical maneuver in a legal war. In a normal world, a DNA test is a private medical matter. In the royal world, it is a matter of state, a point of debate, and apparently, a tool for litigation. Harry's collapse showed that despite his royal title and his millions of dollars, he was still a human being who could be hurt. The shock wasn't just the data on the page, it was the realization that he could never truly escape the institution he left behind. He had traveled thousands of miles to find peace, but the shadow of the crown was still tall enough to reach him in that witness box. It was a moment of profound vulnerability that stripped away the prince and left only a father who was terrified for his child. As Harry regained consciousness, his first words to his attorney changed the strategy of the entire case. The courtroom remained closed to the public for hours. When the trial finally resumed, the atmosphere was markedly different. The aggression from the defense had been replaced by a cautious, almost clinical precision. It was during this closed session that the true nature of the shocking DNA results was finally laid bare. It turned out that the story wasn't one of scandal or infidelity, at least not in the way the tabloids had hoped. Instead, the documents revealed a disturbing truth about the lengths to which private investigators and tabloid agents would go to obtain information. The shock wasn't that Archie wasn't Harry's son. The shock was that the DNA report entered into evidence had been subtly altered. It was a sophisticated piece of disinformation designed to provoke a reaction, to create a headline, and to shake Harry's credibility on the stand. The investigation into the document revealed that it had been compiled from various medical records, some of which were obtained through questionable or outright illegal means. It was a patchwork of truth and fiction. Harry's collapse wasn't because he saw a secret revealed, it was because he saw the absolute horror of how far his enemies were willing to go. He realized that even his son's genetic code could be hacked, edited, and weaponized against him. The shocking result was the discovery that in the war for information, nothing was off limits. Not even the biological identity of a toddler. The court eventually ruled the specific documents inadmissible, but the psychological scar remained. It was a chilling reminder that in our modern world, your most private information can be stolen and reshaped to tell a story that isn't true. This story forces us to look at the darker side of the information age. We live in a time where a single document, true or false, can destroy a life in seconds. Prince Harry's struggle is a high-profile version of a battle many people face today, the fight for the truth in a world full of noise. It reminds us to be careful about what we believe and to remember that behind every headline, there are real people with real feelings. The document in court was eventually destroyed by order of the judge, but the images of Harry slumped in that chair will stay in the public mind forever. It wasn't a defeat, but it was a heavy price to pay for a man who just wanted to be a father. The document was destroyed, but Harry's look of defeat suggests this battle is far from over. To see how the king reacted to this security breach and what it means for the future of the Sussexes, you won't want to miss our next video.